What's up, YouTube? Welcome back here to another episode on Life on 2. We are currently outside, which is beautiful weather, in Malibu. And I think today's going to be a little bit of a different type of, okay, here we go. A different type of video. I'm just trying out different stuff, you know what I mean? So, trying to figure out where to start here without also getting hit. So, obviously, we've been in lockdown, at least in LA, for almost a year now. And yeah, it's been interesting. It's been tough some days. It's been alright most days, but you know, it's definitely been something like never before, at least in my generation. So, not like we've been around that long either, though. But so I thought I'd make an interesting list of movies that I watched during quarantine. And I'm going to be honest, there's no organization to this list. They didn't come, some of them came out like before quarantine. Thank you. Oh, right on. Thank you. And like, they're all over the place as far as genre goes. I will say though, during quarantine, I tried to, what's it called? Thank you. I'm lane splitting right now, but during quarantine I tried to watch a little bit more foreign movies or international movies, and the reason why is because, oh, right on, thank you, my guy. The reason why is because, you know, Bong Joon-ho, I actually really enjoy international movies because I think it's really cool to see the difference in storytelling, but I feel like Parasite really reinvigorated me to check out some international movies. And, you know, I was just going through Netflix. So all of these movies, by the way, are on Netflix. And these are just movies that I watched during quarantine. I watched a lot more than just these, but these are like the top 10 that, for some reason, I would recommend to my friends, all right? And the, boom. What was I gonna say? Like, the premise of this list, I guess, is really, it's just like a list of movies that I would recommend to my friends to watch, I guess, if they're bored. Some of them are good movies, some of them are like, you know, but hey, enjoy. Oh, we're gonna cut through here. That's just beautissimus. We'll stop here, though. I will say, though, full disclosure, I believe there's 2, maybe 3 submarine movies on this list, and I'm going to get into that because submarines, you know, if it's a submarine movie or underwater or something like this, it's already intrigued my attention because I'm terrified of under the water stuff, and that just right there, you know, is you got my attention. So there's 2 or 3 submarine movies on here. There's a couple of international movies on here, and this video is going to be different for 2 reasons. I forgot my list that I wanted to make at home, so I also think I'm going to do something a little different here. I just wanted to get out and ride, you know, so I'm going to shut up from here on out. I think it's just going to be riding footage. But I do want to say I'm going to do this voiceover now, and I'm going to give a little premise, a little plot of the movies and what I liked about it real quick. If you guys want me to do a more in-depth review of these films, you let me know, because I also was thinking about doing an in-depth review of each film, but for this video, I'm just going to give an overview of what I thought about the movie or why I'm recommending it. But other than that, you guys, thanks for tuning in. We're stopping here, but I hope you enjoy this here list of movies that I watched during the pandemic. And this beautiful day that we're having in Southern California. So, thanks guys. Enjoy the rest of the show.
I just love the way that bike sounds when I'm ripping on the throttle like that. Alright, so I'm going to try to make this very quick. If I'm talking too fast, I'm sorry, but there's a few movies on here that I got to get through with a little bit of information. So I'm going to make this the top 10 movies that I would recommend to watch during lockdown. There is a healthy mix of both genre and quality of films. So in no particular order, but I would say the quality of film being the more entertaining movies to watch will be saved for later. I think all of these movies are great. That's why I recommend them. And I think I really got something out of them. So, with that being said, the first movie that I'm going to recommend is a 2-for-1 because I feel that you have to watch both of them. And the reason why is because they're not one of the best movies out there, but I think they know exactly what they are. It's very similar to a Sharknado. So it's a monster flick, and it's very, like, more an occult classic than anything else. The acting is purposefully obvious and stuff like this. So the first is Tremors, A Cold Day in Hell. The second is Tremors, Shrieker Island. I've only seen one Tremors in my entire life, and before this, and I think it was the original one. I think back then they were trying to take themselves a little too seriously now, but now I think that they know exactly what they are, and I think they really play into that niche very nicely. So if you're looking for a lighthearted monster flick, they're giant worms, basically, if you don't know anything about the Tremors thing, and they're attacking the Earth, and there's obviously a hero trying to save the day, and in these last two, I think they're really funny, and again, they play into it very well. So I would recommend this. This is the 10th movie on the list, working our way up. The next one is The Black Sea, which is a movie that came out in 2014. I remember this because it was hard to find a showing for this. This is the first submarine movie on this list, and I remember wanting to see this movie for two reasons. One, it's about submarines, which you already got my attention, and two, it's Jude Law, and I really like him as an actor. So I remember going to see this movie in theaters. I've watched it a few times since then, and it's a movie I rewatched on Netflix during the lockdown. I always recommend this movie because I feel like it's not recognized enough, and it's almost like a heist movie as well as a submarine movie, and you've got an interesting play on cultural differences, especially so close after World War II between the British and the Russians, and it's just such an interesting element there, so that's why it's on here. Again, I think it's more for niche people, so I'm not going to say that everybody's really going to enjoy this movie, but I really enjoyed it, and I think it's very entertaining. Moving on is Prospect, a newer film that came out in 2018 with Pedro Pascal. It takes place in space, so again, I don't know how many people are going to really like this. I recommend it because I think, A, the concept is interesting, how there is this teenage girl and her father on this alien planet mining for something very valuable, but it's also very dangerous, and then you kind of learn this whole frontier outlaw of space, and I really thought this was an interesting take on that, and really well done, actually, as far as the production design goes and all that other stuff. So I really would recommend this, of course, that's why it's on this list, but again, not one of those that's really for everybody. You think you're really going to be into film, you may really like space, something like that. Moving on to the next one, I actually recommend everybody watching, especially now due to the pandemic. I think everybody's going to relate to this, and it is the first international movie on here, is #Alive, which came out in 2020, and it's a zombie movie. And at this point in my life, to be honest, I felt like except the Resident Evil franchise, there's not really much you can do with zombies. They don't get really that interesting. So I was waiting for another zombie horror movie to really open my eyes and see what could we do. And I think that this is such a great example of like a different take on zombie movie. This is not a normal zombie movie. I think it actually examines the psychological impact on people who have to become isolated due to a virus that's spreading, which obviously that sounds very similar to what's going on in our lives right now with the COVID-19 pandemic. So I would recommend watching this movie just for the social meaning that I feel that I got from this movie, as well as, again, opening yourselves up to international film. Make sure you watch this in Korean with whatever language you speak. Make sure it's in subtitles. I don't like dubbing over movies. I think it's a sin. It just doesn't look as great, and you really appreciate the authenticity of the actors' performances, which I think is fantastically given both through their facial expressions and their voices. So very important to watch this movie, especially in the native language of Korean with your subtitles. Moving on, this is a very entertaining film. It's an action movie. Den of Thieves. It's made in 2018. I didn't watch it when it came out. I watched it during the lockdown. If you look at the cast, you just basically see how this is a regular action movie. You know, it's just going to be muscle-up dudes doing the thing and doing their job. But I think the story is so interesting because it's about this gang of thieves really trying to rob the Federal Reserve in Los Angeles. I also like LA. It's my hometown, so I get to see a lot of the shots in there. And it's really actually a well-written plot, and for the cast that they have in there, I personally underestimated their acting abilities, let's say, and I was very impressed with how they delivered in their performances. I think this is an entertaining movie that not everybody's going to really follow along, but I think if you like action movies or movies in general, this is probably something that you'll really enjoy. Moving up the list, the next movie is Free State of Jones, which came out in 2016, but I had personally never watched. It's based on a true story about a man in the Confederate Army who decided to rebel because he was getting treated unfairly, and then he ended up, it was like this band of outcasts, and slaves at that time were also outcasts, so they put colors aside and they really worked together to build this Free State of Jones. And it's something that I had never heard about. It's a historical event, so I think at the very least you could educate yourself on it. Matthew McConaughey is fantastic, and I loved his performance in this. I'm not going to say it's one of his best performances, but I don't think that this movie is one of the finest that he's been in. It's still a great movie, still entertaining. If you're looking for something historical, I would put this on there, and it's one of the better historical movies that I watched. That's why it's on this list. The next movie on this list is another historical movie called The Siege of Jadotville. Now, personally, I've been looking for a World War I movie. I know 1917 was great, but before that came out, I was really looking for some content on World War I because it's not really covered, and I feel like I would love to learn more about that in an entertaining manner. And The Siege of Jadotville kept popping up on my timeline. It's not even about World War I, to be honest. I thought it was, but it takes place in the 60s. And it involves the Irish, I guess, army participating in the United Nations in Africa. And I didn't know anything about this, right? I just watched it because I thought it was World War I, but I was really impressed with this film. I thought it was so well done. The writing especially, I think, is really great in this movie. So is the acting. But it was just really cool to learn about this piece of history, you know? Moving into the top 3 of this list, it was hard for me to categorize them. Again, I don't want to really put numbers on them because I don't want to rank them. These are movies that I would recommend to people I know, and there's no real category that they all fit in. But the last 3 for me were the most entertaining to watch, and they really kept my attention throughout. So the first on these last 3 is Da 5 Bloods, which came out in 2020. I love this movie for so many reasons. I think if you want to learn a little bit about African American history, this movie drops it in there in a way that maybe sometimes comes across as documentary, because I wasn't such a fan of the editing style in which they just pasted those pictures in there. Maybe they could have been a little more creative of it, but still educational on American culture, in a way that's not a documentary. I also really like that I watched this movie right after I watched this movie right after Chadwick Boseman had passed, and this movie represents him as a ghost, and the way in which, or not really a ghost, but like a spiritual representation or manifestation. And I really thought it honored his memory well. I didn't know him personally, but I was saddened by his loss, and I think that it was a really great way to preserve his legacy and portraying him in this way. And it was just such a great movie. I'm a real big fan of Delroy Lindo. I love all the movies that he's in, and his part is just fantastic. It's really funny and entertaining in my opinion. So I can't recommend this movie enough. Honestly, I think it's both educational. It's not based on a true story, but it does have little tidbits of factual information in there. It also has this crazy Quentin Tarantino type ending that you would not expect coming. So 100% watch this movie. Moving on is a movie I watched, another movie, of course, watching the lockdown. I believe it was an Arabic film, but actually it's an American film, but it's completely spoken in Arabic, and it is Mosul, which came out in 2019. It is based on an actual battle that happened in Mosul in 2016, and I have a lot of friends in the Arabic culture. One of my closest friends is Egyptian, so I feel that I have kind of an inside look into the Arabic culture as far as how the jokes land and stuff like that. So I really liked that I was able to understand these jokes in what I thought was an international movie, and I also really, really liked the acting in this. I think the protagonist, the leader of the main squad, the way he delivered is amazing. The rookie who joins the squad sometime along the movie, his acting, fantastic. And I cannot recommend this movie enough. I think it's something that, again, you have to watch with the native language of Arabic on and watch with subtitles. For me, that's English. And I think the performances are just delivered a lot better in that. And then finally, the last movie on this list is The Wolf's Call, a French movie that came out in 2019. It's a submarine movie, so of course, I had to watch it. I was a little skeptical about watching this because when I read the plot line on Netflix, it felt kind of weak, not too interesting for me. But boy, was I wrong. Man, this movie is incredible. It's about like some type of audio warfare guy, and basically he listens for different types of sounds of submarines. This is an actual position, by the way, within submariners, and I didn't know this. So I think it gives you a unique insight into submariners' like culture. The reason why it's high on my list is because I thought it was both entertaining, it was a good movie, and it's about submarines. However, I still feel like it's potentially a niche market for this film. So, if you're interested in submarines, or if you're interested actually in watching international movies, I think this is fantastic. So, yeah, I mean, this really kind of wraps up this list for me. I could do a more in-depth review if that's something that you guys are interested in for each individual film, but I feel like this video itself is getting so long, so I didn't really want to take up too much of you guys' time. But I do recommend you watching a lot of all the international films in their original language because the acting performances are so much better. If you're an adult, you know how to read, then you should definitely watch them with subtitles on. I watch all my movies with subtitles on, to be honest, even if they're in English, just so I can hear better. But thank you guys for watching. This pretty much concludes the end of this video. Let me know if you want to see more stuff like this. I try to keep the energy the same when I'm doing these voiceovers, but sometimes it's hard because I just don't have that adrenaline flowing through me like when I'm on the bike. But appreciate you guys' time. Let me know what you think about these movies and what you thought about them either in the comments or if we decide to do movie reviews in the future, whatever. Definitely want to hear your thoughts if this is something that you rocked with. Definitely going to offer some more movie lists because I love to watch movies. I love to recommend them to people. But yeah, I think this will wrap it up for this video, you guys. Hope you have a great day, and adios.